Hi guys, my name is Danielle and this is Gremlin Mama Cakes. Today I'm going to be making a hot air balloon. This is actually different than what I normally do. I've never made a cake that requires an external structure. All of my cakes that I sculpt have always been self-supported, just using frosting and freezing as the method, because when the frosting hardens it just really holds everything together and I don't have any issues. I have been doing this for about 10 years and I've always made cakes for friends and family. I've not done it professionally, but I thought it would be cool at the insistence of my children to try making my son's actually the one filming this, to try making a YouTube channel that kind of just teaches the amateur how to make cakes. Anyway, so this is how I've done it so far. You forget, this is all frosting, like ice frosting from being in the freezer. But I took these, like, they're not skewers, but they're similar to skewers that I just got them from the Dollar Tree. But anyway, I drilled the holes around and created these 4 posts, and then I used some wire to dangle a small board. I've already tested it all out to create the floating effect that will happen between the cake and the basket here. For the basket, I actually used one of these. I think these were made for like angel food cake, for you to like fill with whipped cream and fruit or something. But I saw that and I was like, oh my goodness, that'd be a great basket. These are made with a ball mold. My son actually baked these for me while I was working because I have a full-time job. So he baked all of these cakes for me so that I could sculpt them. And I'm going to be using this right here to level them out. And then I'm going to put them together and I'll come back and I'll show you what that looks like once I've done that. Okay, so we finished cutting all of these, and now we're going to do a test run to see how everything fits. Normally, when you're doing something like this, you would lay down some frosting, but I don't need to do that at this point because the sticks hold everything in place, and the whole point of the frosting is to keep your cake from moving around, but we're not going to have that issue. So now we're just going to do a test run without assembling with frosting because we want to make sure everything fits properly, and voila. But if you notice, this is a little bit misshapen, and we want to get a very uniform look.
Or smooth like shape is on that.
Yeah, something like that. So that was my son. So we need to just kind of shave this down a little bit. And then we're going to do a frosting over everything, but I'm going to show you how I do all of that. I'm going to do a time lapse of me just kind of shaving this down so that you guys aren't stuck here watching me forever, because I'm a little bit of a perfectionist. Okay, so now I'm going to do the layer of icing. I really don't like super thick icing normally, but in this case, because the cake is really thick and there's not going to be a lot of icing everywhere else, we're going to add a little bit more icing than normal. So I've done that layer. Now I'm going to take this and I'm going to put this on. Now, I didn't get this as perfect as I would have liked because I can just fill it in with icing on the outside if I run into issues. I can edit out. Don't worry. Okay. So now we're going to do this. And there goes my dog again. He spends most of his time whining. Right now he's barking at the cat.
Hold on, I'm gonna set the camera down and deal with him. Come on. Go.
So right now I'm going to put this on, and that kind of completes it. And then I'm going to do a rough icing around the edging to finish it out. And I'll just kind of come back and show y'all that after I do that. Right now I got to fill all of this in with frosting. Okay, so we've done a rough cut of icing, and now what I have to do is I have to pop this into the refrigerator and get it firmed up so that I can rub it with a paper towel and get it all smoothed out. We are dealing with our house being about 80 degrees plus. You're a little bit to the coast there, bud. You should back up. Thank you. So again, son, thank you. He gets distracted easily, guys. So what we're gonna do is we have to get this frosting cold so it'll firm up. This is not frosting I normally use. I used a Costco buttercream from their bakery to cut down on prep time. I normally make all of my frosting from scratch. It just tastes better and it's much more resilient. This stuff turns out to be very, very soft. So dealing with 80-degree temperatures inside of our house because of this insane heat wave mixed with this softer buttercream is proving a little bit challenging for me. So this might be a little bit more of a process than I anticipated, but I promise this will look pretty. And then once we go to do the basket weave on this basket down here, I will get all of this cleaned up so that we don't get crumbs in the coating or anything. So I promise it will look a lot better. Just bear with me, and we will come back once this is firmed up. Hi guys. So it turns out my house is just too hot and this frosting is just too soft. And honestly, based on what I experienced after refrigerating it, it really is just too soft. So we're going to actually do a traditional piping instead of trying to do the smooth frosting. And then I actually have like this little basket weave paper because I've never done a basket weave before. So I'm going to follow this to create a basket weave on this guy. And I'm probably going to try to do basket weave inside of there too, but I don't know how well that's going to turn out. Probably should have considered that before I added the balloon. But the issue is that I'm a very messy person. Also, I apologize. My son is distracted by the pieces of cake that he's snacking on rather than filming. But anyway, so we're going to try to get the inside of this. I may just end up doing like a brown or maybe an opposite color to make it look like a lining, because I just was not prepared for realizing that the balloon was going to be in my way. I make mistakes too. But anyway, so we're going to start working on this, and I'll just do a little bit of a time lapse of me doing the basket weave. There are lots of YouTube videos by other people that show you how to do a basket weave. So you know, if you want something a little bit more detailed, just go ahead and look up just how to do basket weave piping, and you'll be able to get some tips that way. But I will just try to do a time lapse for you so you can kind of have an idea. I'm going to have to fill in these areas as well to make up for the fact that what are you doing? To make up for the fact that that's how distracted my child gets. To make up for the fact that I cut this out to fit it between the thing. But we'll go ahead and get started on that and then move on. This is called a crumb coat. I'm not sure yet if I'm going to scrape this off and redo it. I still got to put like the sandbags and stuff on there to make it look better. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to slowly shape this from top to bottom and give it the classic hot air balloon ridges. And we're going to do it in purple, yellow, and green striping. And we'll probably just do a time lapse so you can kind of see a part of it. I'm still playing around with this, so I'm not, you know, we're still learning. This is a learning process for us. So we're just gonna go ahead and get started on that and hopefully do a pretty decent time lapse for you, and then we'll come back. Okay guys, so I actually have finished the cake. I couldn't video a lot of it, mostly because my son loses his attention span and was not wanting to hold the camera. But I'm gonna just kind of go over some things with you. I ended up having to add some extra powdered sugar into that store-bought Costco frosting to make it more stable so that it didn't go limp. I actually had a blooper where a whole sheet of frosting just fell off. It was a nightmare, but it was because of the condensation from the cake being frozen. I ended up having to like dab the moisture off the cake just to make it work. It was craziness. So I'm gonna just kind of show you. This is a view from the top. I'm gonna try to put a flashlight on here so that you can see it better because the lighting in my house is terrible. So this is the view from the top. I don't have fondant molds to make, you know, fondant rope. I try not to use fondant in my work because I just prefer to use frosting. I don't like to have to undress cake to eat it. It's just not something I've invested a lot of money into because that stuff gets pretty pricey. But what I did is I just kind of made do with some black frosting to make a black rope because I didn't want to add even more brown to the cake. And I have added sandbags to give it a more, you know, realistic look all the way around. The little blooper that happened earlier was this entire sheet of yellow. The whole thing just collapsed off the cake. It's been a nightmare working with this Costco frosting. I don't think I'm ever going to want to use it for one of my more structured cakes again. I think it would be fine for like my, you know, like single layer basic cakes, but I'm not sure I'd want to use it even then because I have to use, I really suck at manual smoothing with a tool, so I have to use paper towels to smooth the frosting. And the thing with that Costco frosting is that it sticks to the paper towels, so you can't manually smooth it. I did paint this blue to give it a floating through the clouds look, and as you can see I added clouds both on the balloon and just kind of around the base of it. And it's very much a three-dimensional cake. I tried to give it some realism by making indentions where the rope would be holding around the balloon, and it came out pretty good. If I had to do this again, and you will hear this a lot on any video I make because I'm very, very critical of what I do. If I had to do this again, I would use thicker wire because if I were to transport this cake, I'm not 100% certain it would hold together with the very thin wire that I used. I would also use probably a little bit thicker dowels so that I could make it taller because this is pretty shallow. I'm not real super happy with how shallow that is. I would have liked a little bit more space. I would have liked to be able to add like a little flame, you know, I don't know what they're called, but the little gas thing that they use right here that creates flames. I would have definitely loved to do some more intricate detail on it, but mostly what this experience was about was to see if I could make a supported structured cake as opposed to just my typical sculpted cakes that I usually make. I would have also, I just didn't have the money. I'm very limited on my ability to buy a bunch of supplies, so I had to make do with what I had. But if I could do this again and have just a little more extra money, I would, hold on baby, I'm still filming, I would have added another layer, maybe even 2 of the wood discs that would go around. That way you could cut the cake in layers to kind of go all the way down instead of having to cut these giant pieces all the way down to this base that we have under here. I'm not real big on the having to cut giant slices of cake, and actually one of the big things that I've noticed on other tall cakes is I personally would like more discs in the cake to make cutting it, support discs to make cutting it easier and have nicer, thinner slices. But there you have it. I'm really pretty pleased with it. I would have definitely liked just a little more shape. Like I would have wanted it to come a little bit more narrow. But in order to do that, I would have needed more disc supports, and probably would have used straws for the in-between supports of the layers so that I could get that more intense, narrow structure without it collapsing. And really the dowel rods are a great way to prevent that collapse anyway. You would just need them taller so that they go more the length of the cake. And then for this part, because the dowel rods did come out, I rolled up some fondant and just ran it along before frosting it. That way we have a more uniform look to the rope coming off of those dowel rods. But anyway, so that's my hot air balloon cake. If you're interested in seeing more cakes from me, just like and subscribe. And if you don't like what I've done, definitely leave some comments on suggestions of things that you would like to see, or even if you have suggestions on how I could do this better. I am absolutely all for it. I always look for new skills on creating better techniques on my cakes, and I welcome anything that you have to suggest, or if you have any requests of something you would like me to make, just shoot it down in the comments, and I will do the best that I can. You guys have a great day.